Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back for another Walking Dead video. Today we're going to talk about Daryl Dixon, the series as a whole. What we got with that first season versus what the second season brought us. In my opinion, a season that was very underperforming, underwhelming, very hyped up finale that really just ended up bumming me out and just had no payout whatsoever as far as what they were trying to say about this series and just what I think the original plan was, but that just it kind of changed when Melissa McBride decided that she was going to come back. Her schedule opened up and just whatever that all really entailed as far as why she came back at all. Because if you don't recall, when this show was first announced, it was supposed to be the Daryl and Carol show. It was supposed to be about an adventure that they would go on, what would happen when they left the area of The Walking Dead. And then things just kind of changed up there before they really got the production up off the ground. Melissa McBride said that she just couldn't do it. She didn't want to. She wanted to kind of take a break from everything, which was understandable. She just wrapped up an 11-year run on another show. And so it just became the Daryl spinoff. And it was about this whole adventure where he wound up in France. And there was all this mystery about how did he exactly end up there? What were the circumstances of him getting to this place? And what was kind of the whole premise about it? Well, the whole premise, as we know, when he left The Walking Dead after it completed its run, was that he was going out there looking for Rick. He had got this information from Judith that Michonne had left to go look for Rick because she had some clues or she had some indication that he was alive and she was going to find him and bring him home. So Daryl kind of joined in on this hunt himself, and so he takes off. Things kind of go south. He ends up on that boat and gets washed ashore there in France. And, you know, with that first season, I gotta say, I really enjoyed the first season. I enjoyed the new story, the new location, the introduction of these new characters and characters that we actually would really grow to like. And just somewhere along the way, before that second season hit, or probably before the first season was even really done filming, something changed. And I think that something is that they had a plan in place how to kind of proceed without Carol in the picture, without Melissa McBride. And they had a plan, they had a story in place that they wanted to do, but somewhere along the way, when her schedule opened back up, or she just kind of made the decision, hey, I'm going to come back into this, I'm free now, I want to do this, something changed. And I think that's where it changed in the sense that the story that they had originally laid out was no longer viable. It did not work for what they wanted to do. So they went back to the original plan of here is the Carol and Daryl story. And that's kind of what I really wanted to talk about today, because I believe when that happened, the original story that they had kind of planned out for Daryl on his solo mission was scrapped. And that is why we got the second season, why it turned out the way it did. And the story kind of just deviated from this original path that they had. And now we're back to the adventures of Daryl and Carol. They're supposed to find their way home or what have you. It just seems to me that when that kind of came to be, they took this story that we had kind of grown to like, and we had grown to like these characters, particularly Isabel. And when they had this story come in that Daryl was forming this relationship, he was forming these other relationships like with Laurent, and just kind of coming to accept where he was and forming these very close bonds with these other people other than what we'd seen over the last 11 years. It just seemed like something changed up before that production was completed on that first season. They'd already kind of started laying the groundwork of this is not where the story is going to continue. And when the second season came around and Carol was brought back into the picture, and when she was brought into those first few episodes and the season just kind of pivoted, and then we kill off Isabel, we kind of start killing off all the characters that had anything to do with France, and then we just started moving away from France altogether. And it just really took away, I think, from what the show was originally supposed to be. And I gotta say, and I've said a million times at this point, that second season was not good for a lot of reasons. And I think the main reason is, and I hate to say it, but it's because of the fact that Carol came back. And I think it's because Isabel was actually supposed to kind of shift into that female lead. And then when Carol came back, they realized that, hey, we can't have two female leads. We're going to kind of go back to this is the Daryl and Carol show. So we're just going to nix out Isabel, nix out the whole France storyline, deviate, and just create a whole new path where they are now going into Spain. And season 3, they're possibly supposed to end up in the Middle East, and just a completely different story than what we would have originally got if it would only been Daryl And then this new friendship that he had with Isabel that, of course, blossomed into a romantic relationship, but then she just killed off. And the thing that made me mad about it the most was that when she was killed off, there was little to no emotion from Daryl's side. He just kind of had his moment there, and then he's just like, oh, well, Carol's here, I can kind of move on, just kind of do my thing. And then Isabel's never really mentioned again, other than the slight cameo that we got from her in the finale. And the finale is just a whole nother complaint by itself. Norman Reedus hyping up that was just beyond just disappointing. And it was just nothing as far as what he was saying that was supposed to be, which was, of course, the best 1 hour Walking Dead anything ever. Not the case. That thing was mediocre at best. It had nothing that was that could be considered shock factor or big reveal or anything like that. And kind of going with the whole theme of this video, when Daryl ended up in France, we thought we were going to get some sort of explanation of where the virus originated, how it came to be. But then yet again, this is something that was just bypassed, something that was forgotten about. And to go on top of that, when we got the talk or the development of the variants, and, as we know, they were different from what we saw in the last couple of seasons of The Walking Dead, where those were naturally occurring variants. Those were things that were out in the wild versus what we were getting here in Daryl Dixon, which was experiments. These were chemically enhanced experiments. And then they kind of tackled that in the first season, and then they just kind of turned their backs on that too. We got some mention of it. We got some play of them in the second season. But the second season, to me, was just all about severing that France storyline, moving on, and then moving on with Carol and Daryl going on this adventure to get home, but that doesn't seem to be the case whatsoever, and that's just kind of what's making me lose my patience with these shows. Why so many people at this point, too, have kind of turned their backs on them, because they keep popping up these storylines or these plot lines and leaving them unanswered. And I know Walking Dead is very famous for this. I did a whole other video about all these Walking Dead storylines, plot lines, plot holes, character deaths, everything that they've done over the years that have just infuriated the fan base. A lot of them have since, given up on Walking Dead and just kind of forgotten about it. And that was just kind of my big gripe with Daryl Dixon, was that the show started out really good, and then it just kind of, the quality of it steadily but surely went to shit. And I know I speak for a lot of the fan base too, because a lot of people just, you have your hardcore, die-hard fans that are just, they love every little bit of Walking Dead that comes out. And I'm not saying that I don't, because clearly I love The Walking Dead. I do a lot of videos about Walking Dead, and I talk about what theories could happen, talk about just, predictions and just this and that, breakdowns, reviews, all of it. And I do love the universe, but there's a lot of things that I don't love about it. And just the fact that the universe itself at this point is leaving a lot of things unanswered. The quality is not what it used to be, and they just don't seem to care. And they think they're giving us something that they want, but in reality, that's just not the case. It's a lot of the same, a lot of unanswered stuff, a lot of things that we didn't ask for, and just it's very slowly but surely just becoming something that we kind of hope just ends in the near future, where Dead City is kind of the exception to the rule right now. Dead City itself, it's kind of set off, and it's its own story. It's not linking to any other stories like what Daryl Dixon did, where the whole premise of that show was him going out looking for Rick. And now Rick's home. He doesn't know about it. No one seems to know about it too, which is annoying, because I know the timeline is just all over the place, and that's just leaving things open to question and whatnot. But that's just kind of my gripe for this video, is that Daryl Dixon started out one way. They had a plan in place from what I can kind of tell from the story that we got in the first season versus to what we got in the second season. And this is kind of repeating history too, because with Fear the Walking Dead, that was supposed to be about the Clark family. And then we got those first few seasons with one showrunner, then two new showrunners come in, kind of soft rebooted it, and it was just a completely different story. We had the introduction of Morgan, we had the introduction of John Dory, and then soon after that, aside from the so death of Madison, we had the death of Nick, and just the whole shakeup of the universe and it becoming a completely different show than what the original plan was, which was it was supposed to focus on that family. Nick would rise to power in a sense where he would become a leader, he would have his own group, and then Madison was supposed to become a villain. That was the original story, and I think something happened similarly with Daryl Dixon, where they had an idea of what they wanted to do, and then plans just changed when other actors became available, and they're like, well, we're going to kind of wedge her back into the story, and that's going to be that, and we're going to take it in a completely different direction. And that's just what, to me, where the seems like with Daryl, they're going to just be kind of hopping all over the globe, and maybe we will get something regarding them going home, reuniting with Rick, and giving that proper close that we didn't get within the original flagship show. But that is my video, or my complaints about the Walking Dead world, however you want to take it. But if you enjoyed the video, if you share similar feelings and thoughts, please be sure to leave a like, leave a comment. It takes 2 seconds, and subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate it, and I will see you next time. So take care. Bye.